Hey guys, it's James, Michigan Football Report, James Yoder. Coming here from a parking lot near a hospital. I've got a family member hospitalized, but nevertheless, the show doesn't sleep when I'm not in the office, like I won't be this week and some of last week. So here's what's going on. A Pac-12 reporter put out earlier today that USC and UCLA are set to join the Big Ten as early as 2024. And they said their sources were at the highest levels of those schools. They will apply for membership in the Big Ten, and that will be approved, and they'll join the conference. Now, former ESPN National College Football reporter Brett McMurphy is reporting that his sources are telling him the same thing. So I think this is three Harbaugh heads category, 3.5 Harbaugh heads category, and just wanted to kind of analyze what that would look like for the future of this Michigan football program, the Big Ten, and the college football landscape altogether. So the Big Ten adds 2 teams, 16 teams. I think if you did that and you try to do 2 8-team divisions, you would ruin the integrity of scheduling, right? Like the SEC may have, or even kind of has had, right, with what they've got going on right now, where some teams like Florida and Texas A&M only play each other at their own stadium like every 12 years or something crazy like that. So what I've thought about is what I think would make a lot of sense. 4 14 pods. 16 teams, 4 14 pods. You try and balance them as much as you can, but you also rotate them. So imagine a scenario you had Michigan in one pod, and then whatever the other pods were, they're competitive. I'm going to talk about my ideas here in a second. But year 1, Pod A and Pod B would be together, C and D would be together in 2 separate divisions, right? But year 2, the next year, A and C would be together, right? Winner of that goes to the conference championships. B and D would be together. Then year 3, A and D, B and C. You do that, you've got a steady rotation of playing every team in the conference throughout a player's 3, 4, or 5-year career with your school, and you don't get a situation where I think the SEC kind of has now, where you almost have 2 separate conferences that just meet up at the end of the year to play each other, right? So what might those pods look like? I've jotted down back of a Trident gum wrapper. I've got some ideas here, right? This might not be perfect, but I don't think you could just stack Michigan with Ohio State and Michigan State and some other throwing school, and that makes a lot of sense. So I think these are the ones that I would like to see, and we'll talk about it from there. Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, Minnesota. That is Pod 1. Pod 2, UCLA, USC, Iowa, Nebraska. That's Pod 2. That actually might be the most competitive pod on a year-in, year-out basis. Think about USC, they could be a potential power right now with Lincoln Riley. Nebraska, historically, not necessarily lately. Iowa, consistent good team, 8-9 win team. And UCLA, right? One every 5-6 years, UCLA is a 10-win team, and they've got Chip Kelly. All right, Pod 3, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern, and Purdue. Now, that seems kind of weak, so maybe you swap out Northwestern and Iowa, I'm not sure, or Nebraska and Purdue, something like that, to make B and C, or 2 and 3, a little bit separate, a little balanced, but Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern, Purdue, and then Pod 4, Michigan State, Penn State, Rutgers, and Maryland, right? If you get, if that third pod, Illinois, Purdue, Wisconsin, that one feels a little weak to me. So maybe you switch out Iowa and Northwestern between pods 2 and 3. And if you think about this, year 1, Michigan, Ohio State, Indiana, Minnesota with UCLA, USC, Iowa, and Nebraska. That's one division, right? And you're not with that other pod for another 3 years after that. Now this brings up 2 interesting points. Would Michigan State be a protected rivalry, right? In this scenario with the pods, you've only got 7 conference games you've got to lock in on a yearly basis, so you have the opportunity to play 2 others. For those guaranteed crossover games, is one locked in like a Michigan State, and then you get the other one rotating. What happens the year that Michigan State's pods are matched up to each other? It causes a lot of things that I haven't had a chance to think about in full, but that's what I've thought about. Now, other options, instead of having the pods rotate into divisions and just kind of mess up the divisions every year, you could have a situation where you play the 3 teams in your pod, you play another pod, you play there, but you don't have 2 divisions, right? You're not having 2 pods create 2 divisions that rotate every year. Could you have a Big Ten semifinal, right? Where you get 4 pods, and the winner of those 4 pods against those other 3 teams, whoever has the best record with obviously some sort of tiebreaker situation, could they then go to a semifinal, right? And you get 4 semifinal teams facing off against each other, and the winner goes to a Big Ten championship game. That's interesting to me, right? That would be potentially a big deal. I'm not sure if that's in the cards, but it certainly will bring a lot more money if you get 2 extra semifinal games to the conference TV deal. So keep an eye out for potential there. I think it's something that people have talked about, people have speculated on for a number of years. Now, I have a couple more thoughts on this. Before we do jump into those, go down in the comments, give me a reaction. Give me a one-word reaction, give me a multiple-word reaction. Well, what is your reaction to what seemed like credible reports of USC and UCLA joining up with their former the Rose Bowl rivals and the Buckeyes and the Wolverines and Michigan State, Wisconsin, etc. I think it'll be interesting. If it happens, I think in a lot of ways it probably signals the end of the Big 12. And what does that mean? Well, Nebraska, or Texas, and Oklahoma are head of the SEC in either 1, 2, 3 years from now, depending on how things shake out there. Does that mean the Big 12 breaks up a little bit? Do the best 4, 5, 6 teams from the Big 12 then go and kind of backfill USC and UCLA over with the Pac-12, right? Pac-12 is going to drop down to 10 teams now without USC and UCLA if this report is in fact true. If that happens, then where do we go from there? Well, they might just say, well, we need to become a super conference as well, right? SEC going to 16 teams. The Big 10 in this scenario would go to 16 teams. There's the 10 remaining teams from the Pac-12. Then grab the 6 best teams from the Big 12, which now, of course, has Cincinnati and UCF and a couple other teams that are joining them. Could that happen? Sure. Does that leave teams like TCU, maybe Kansas State, maybe Iowa State holding the bag there in the Big 12? And then what happens there, right? Do the remaining Big 12 teams and these new Big 12 teams like Cincinnati and UCF, did they then come over, join up with Western, the WAC, or one of these other AAC, and try and form a 5th power conference? I think it's going to be very interesting to see. But if this happens, it completely shakes up the integrity, or just the tradition of college football, right? Michigan for years, for decades, would play to try and beat Ohio State, win the Big Ten, and head to the Rose Bowl to play USC. And now they're going to be playing against USC. So does the Rose Bowl go away completely? I'm not too sure, but want to give you guys a thought. Seems like this is a very credible source now, a very credible report, and we could be saying 2 years from now, 2024 season, Michigan playing USC, playing UCLA, and the big, an annual basis, or close to annual basis, and the Big Ten adding 2 teams in California, not just in football, but in basketball. Hell, women's swimming, diving, golf would be having to go out to California once or twice a year to play on the road. So it'll be really interesting to see. Let me know you guys your thoughts. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'll be back in the office next week, but I want to see what you guys' thoughts are on this video. So let me know down in the comments. If you haven't watched yet, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Go Blue.